Hello and welcome. My name is Philipp of Roger CPA Review. Today I want to talk about the top 2 changes to the CPA exam in 2019. We've been working hard to ensure that our 2019 course materials reflect the updates to the CPA exam provided to us by the AICPA. While there are no structural changes on the exam, there are major content changes happening on the FAR and REG exams that are going into effect January 1st, 2019. In financial accounting and reporting, or in FAR, the big area that changed is leases. In 2016, the FASB issued ASC 842, which updated the accounting treatment of leases. The goal was to provide more transparency and comparability among companies regarding lease assets and liabilities. To help ensure the transition, the board allowed entities to adopt both the new lease standard, and it wasn't going to hit the exam, or isn't, until January 2019, which is now quickly approaching. Some of the changes include balance sheet recognition. Operating leases lasting over 12 months now must be reported on the balance sheet. So before we had what we called off-balance sheet risk, now they have to be listed in the balance sheet. The new standard creates transparency for investors regarding a company's financial leverage and earnings. With financial statement disclosures, ASC 842 has much more stringent disclosure requirements for both quantitative and qualitative financial statement disclosures. The increased requirements may require companies to improve or implement new systems, procedures, and controls to provide the required disclosure. Lease qualification, long-term leases are now reported on the balance sheet. Short-term leases of 12 months or less are still allowed to be excluded from the balance sheet, but you could include them if you so desire. The new standard dictates that if the lessee does not have the right to control the use of the asset, then the transaction may not qualify as a lease. So that deals with control, so you've got to have the control. With lease payments, there is a new revised definition of indirect costs, resulting in fewer allowed capitalized costs. Executory costs like property taxes, insurance will now be included in lease payments. Regarding a sale-leaseback transaction, so you sell it and then you immediately lease it back, to qualify as a sale, the transfer of the asset must adhere to the revenue recognition requirements in ASC 606, which deals with revenue from customers with contracts. When the transaction does not qualify as a sale, it is classified as a financing transaction, so kind of like you borrowed the money and more of what we call a note payable. So what does all of this mean for you? Well, since several bright line tests have been removed, the update also requires that more judgment be applied, because we used to have these 4 criteria for a capital lease. Now we call it a finance lease. Now there's 5 criteria, things like specialized nature, a purchase option, title transfer. But here's an area where it kind of got a little gray. The term, it says it has to be a major part of the lease, used to say 75%. Payment, substantially all, which used to be 90% of the fair market value. So that's where the bright line tests kind of come in. So what you're going to see is you're going to need more what we call brain power when addressing these questions on the CPA exam, once these changes go into effect on January 1st, 2019. Now let's talk a little bit about regulation changes, especially in the area of taxation. This is probably the biggest change that everyone is talking about to the CPA exam, especially in regulation. And this is due to what we call the TCJA, which is the Tax Cut Job Acts of 2017. This significantly changed and updated the tax code, which impacts all the sections of tax, which accounts for most, is up to 85% of the regulation exam. This is the section we highly recommend that you take this year in 2018, as it will require you to relearn all that great stuff that you studied in school about taxes, whether it was in university or whether you've been working in the real world. It'll all change. Here are just a few of the examples of the changes. There's an increase in the Section 179 deductions. So we talk about deductions for depreciation and bonus depreciation. Used to be about $500,000. Now it went up to $1 million, starts to phase out at $2.5 million. Increased standard deduction, but the elimination of the personal exemption. So no more personal exemption, dependency exemptions, but your standard deduction is $12,000. Married filing joint double, or $24,000, might be a good reason to get married. New limitations on property and state taxes, as well as local taxes, and also mortgage interest. So your property and state taxes and all those are limited to $10,000 max. Your mortgage interest used to be $1.1 million. They dropped it down to $750,000. There's also a new deduction of up to 20% for owners of certain pass-through entities like S-corps, partnerships, and so on. It's called a QBI deduction, or a qualified business income deduction, which is really nice. We increased the charitable contribution, so if you donate cash, you could, instead of 50% of AGI, they increased it to 60% of AGI. Entertainment expenses are now disallowed. So we used to do meals and entertainment, now it's just meals, no more entertainment. The new corporate tax rate, flat tax rate, went from 35% down to 21%, which is helpful, and that whole purpose was to bring corporations back into the United States. Increased gross receipts test, which allows more entities now to use the cash basis or cash method of accounting. Used to be at $10 million, they increased it to $25 million. So in conclusion, you can see that the CPA exam content updates to these two areas will be significant. If you need help working these exams into your busy schedule, our new SmartPath Predictive Technology is the most effective way to maximize your study time. Well, it's a data-driven platform that tells you exactly where and how to focus your efforts. It takes the guesswork out of CPA exam preparation. It's helping candidates pass the exam faster than ever before. They're more effective, they're more efficient. So no matter when you decide to take the exam, we have your back, and we'll guide you on the smart path to CPA exam success. Thank you, and good luck in your studies.